All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of video. I'm going to talk about how to pass Mulesoft Certified Developer Level 2. I just passed the exam last Wednesday on December 7th. This exam is significantly harder than the level 1. And in order to pass this exam, first of all, you have to pass the level 1, and it should be valid, and so you can schedule the exam for this one. So in today's session, I'm going to cover the topics of the exam and what we should pay attention when we prepare this certification. So first of all, you can go to this link to, let's see, to look the official requirement on this is a website on how you what is prerequisite. For example, you have to have the level 1, and this is a format is 60 questions, 2 hours, and 70%, and all the rest. So there's a topics here. I'm going to cover today all those topics, and there is a practice exam. These are 60 questions. Those are very valuable questions. I think about 50% of question will come from here. So to me, I think they are about 50% of question almost exactly same as this, and then there is another 25% is very relevant, but it's a little bit different. You have to look up when you prepare the exam. You have to look at the document, and a lot of questions are directly come from the Mulesoft document actually. So the timing is 2 hours. So I got done. I finished about 1 hour 40 minutes. So I have 20 minutes to review. Honestly, this exam is pretty tough. A lot of topics or questions we don't encounter in our daily development practice. For example, they ask PGP encryption. We do it, but which is using the PGP. There is a connector. You just select it. That's all you need to do. But when they ask the detailed questions, it's hard. Another is SSL handshaking, for example. They ask pretty detailed. Anyway, I'm going to cover all those topics. Make sure you're prepared. So there are total of 4 categories or 4 topics. The first category, I would say, is relatively easy. And first of all, the implement the webhook. There will be about 1 or 2 questions to ask you one way or another how you're going to notify your client. For example, they provide few scenarios. Whenever you see this webhook, make sure you choose that. So that this is easy one. The API auto discovery is also relatively easy. If you have developed your API, you know how the instant ID link the API manager with application, and how the policy was downloaded to the runtime, As long as you know this, you should be fine. The special, this one, the API request access to API. This is the easy one, so everybody should know that. I mean, you go to Exchange and request API access. In server side caching, this will definitely, there's a question on how the caching works. In particular, with how this server caching work in on-premise. So this is a little bit difficult. And this always relevant to the object store. So when you have different worker, how you're going to access caching, etc. Configure out of box policy. This one I think is fairly easy, but you need to know all the different categories of API policy. For example, security. There's the basic auth, OAuth, etc. Quality of service. There is rate limiting with SLA, spike, etc. Compliance, for example, one is client ID enforcement, and also the custom policy. Custom policy, this is a big topic we're going to cover in details. API versioning, this I found it's pretty easy. You all know that it's very similar to developer level 1 exam. So the next topic this one is a little bit challenging, I found. This is more about how you configure Maven plugin. You need to know Maven pom.xml content. Have to pay attention inside it. That's the probably most important part. And also with Maven, MUnit, how you execute, and how the MUnit testing case look like. You need to pay attention to the syntax. Especially they ask the assert that in the MUnit test. But this is not hard, but you just need to make sure you understand what the syntax look like, and also need to memorize that. And there's one question at least talking about MUnit framework, and how do you extend MUnit policy extension, MUnit extension in the XML SDK or Mu SDK. So this is one, to me it's a little bit hard. I didn't know this before, but during the exam I think I guess it's correct. A lot of I would say you have about 10 questions you have to guess. It's pretty hard to know every topic. This is the topic 2. Let's move on to the next topic. So this is about monitoring the Mu applications. For sure, there will be a question on health check, implement health check on API when you deploy the API in the runtime, Mu runtime. Either Cloud Hub or RTF, you should have a dedicated health check endpoint. So this is there will be have one question at least. Logging, yes, the logging question, I would say they have at least 4 or 5 of them. This is pretty about how you change the logging level in runtime, and also in Anypoint Studio, you need to know the log4j2.xml file, how you enable that, how you enable logging in the Cloud Hub in the runtime. You don't have to know the RTF. RTF and Cloud Hub runtime logging setting is a little bit different. You just need to know Cloud Hub, how to do that. Monitoring application, there is a monitoring. There are at least 2 or 3 monitoring questions. You need to know the dashboard, how to collect different performance information about application. And there is a question how you're going to, there is one question, how are you going to check the Salesforce connector performance? That question is, so they'll ask, they could ask any connector, right? How you check the connector, how many requests pass through Salesforce connector, for example. That you need to know. The implementing message correlation, when I took the exam, there is a question about how you're going to set correlation ID to AMQ message ID. So that is a question. Definitely there will be a question how are you going to set the correlation ID. For example, when you call the API, how are you going to pass that correlation ID? How that correlation, what happens if you don't pass the correlation ID? And how that correlation ID pass to HTTP request? So those questions you must understand very well. This is the last topic is talking about performance, reliability. This will be, how you exchange the status of execution. So you need to know object store persistence. Especially the important thing is time to live, TTL. So object store has 2 types of the TTL. It's called the rolling and the static. So we'll cover this more, and this at least one or 2 questions will test this. Another one is VM and Anypoint MQ. Definitely there will be questions, one or 2 at least. You need to know the listener, the consumer, and you need to know what is the publish, consume. We're going to count. They will test this for sure. And so this React incorrect active status code. Oh yes, they were talking about 502, for example, the return 502. What should you do? So you need to understand 400 error code 400, 403. You need to understand what is 400, HTTP 400, 402, 403. So those scenario we need make sure we need to review this. If you need to understand under what condition it will return 400. What error 403 and what is 405? All those questions. There will be question asking those HTTP status code. Because you have to know what it means for each status code in order to react. So that we need to make sure we understand that. The validation module, definitely they will test. At least 2 or 3 questions come from validation module. And related to validation is error handling. So, for example, what happened if validation failed, and if the error is on error propagate or on error continue, what that will look like. And also another particular attention we have to pay is there's error mapping. So they will question, they will ask you what you will see when this validation failed. And it's very confusing. You will think about it will the original error, but what happened in the error mapping, they are mapped to another error. You always choose the mapped error. So I'll cover that. Yeah, Scott and gather. This is definitely 2 or 3 questions from this one. How do you do parallel? How do you do sequential? And how do you look the error payload when there's an error happen, right? How do you get that payload? What is, if there's all successful, what the payload look like? So this one, I will say about 2-3 questions at least, sometimes 3. In my exam, I think it has 3 at least, 3 or 4. Yeah, client-side caching of API invocation for performance. This is more when in the flow when you do caching. So caching has one we need to pay attention. There's HTTP caching policy. That is for the really from the listener level. So this is talking about how you implement when you send a request to caching. So that is a big fault topic, and there's additional challenging questions I found we need to pay particular attention. In my exam, they talk about there is one question about PGP and how we need to understand how PGP keys what you need if you send the encrypted text, right? If you are the sender, what do you need as a receiver, right? So it's not hard, but the question is pretty confusing. And another one is SSL handshake. So we need to understand how the handshake works. In particular, the question they will ask, when I took exam, there is a question about what they exchange during the handshake negotiation. So just the truth that there's they're choosing the site suite and the algorithms, how to the site suite algorithms. So just remember that. And of course, what is client certification, authentication, what is server authentication, what is mutual authentication, we must understand that very well. And there will be 1 or 2 questions about mutual authentication. Basically is normally in our normal request is client validated server. In the mutual authentication is that server also need to validate client. Basically, let's say if I'm a bank application, I need to know the one who invoked my API is the person I gave the permission. So that is mutual authentication, or sometimes they call two-way authentication. So that need to be prepared. OAuth 2, for sure, they will ask a question, especially what is the flow. There is authorization code, the grant type, right? So that will for sure they will ask that question. Basically, we need to know what a full ground type look like. That's it. We need to understand that very well, and also need to know each flow how it works, each ground type how it works. So that is overall. So I think what we need to do when we prepare, we need to make sure we first go through the 60 questions in the practice exam, and then we need to go through all the topics of the certification. So I have prepared all the questions here. So I'm going to have another session to go through all these questions, and also I'm preparing the document on each sections of the topic. So in the next few sessions, I'm going to talk those through in more detail. So get you prepared. So if you go through all the 60 practice questions, you read most of the document after what I guide you, you should pass the exam without much problem. Probably you have, as I said, you have 40 questions, you know exactly what the answer. So you have another 20, another 10 maybe is not so clear, but you can guess. Then there's a 10 question about of them. You have to guess very carefully, because one way is we're going to talk through how you're going to do the exam. You need to eliminate the ones which definitely is not correct. And then you choose one or two of them, just give a guess. So you have 50% chance. So you should get about 50 questions out of 60 correct. So you should be fine. All right, I'm going to conclude the first session here. In the next session, I'm going to talk through the practice exams, and then I will follow another topic will be the custom policy. That is very heavily examined. So, all right, we will see you next session.